So I have a problem with dust in the workshop. It's always dusty, which is fairly exasperating, and I just couldn't work out why this was the case. It was horribly dusty. One reason might be that I never clean it, which is potentially one of the issues. But another is actually I have quite a few dust making devices in here. I've got a bandsaw, I've got a circular saw, and no means really of dealing with or managing that dust out of the way. So I have determined to try to build some kind of extraction system. So and not really having any money to spend on it, or none that I want to at least, I'm going to try and build something myself. So what I have is the core, if you like, of a vacuum cleaner that used to belong to my partner's grandma. It was an Electrolux unit. I can't tell you which. Oh, I can. Look at that. Wow, model DM4462001. If that's of any use, this is what that came out of. I should have done a video about pulling it to bits, because they're usually quite fun. They're probably more interesting than this one's going to be. But anyway, I thought I'd just try and capture some of the process of trying to change this into some form of a dust extraction system. The unit itself, let's see if I can just ease this apart without moving everything. The unit itself is, this would be, if you can think about it, this would be at the bottom of the Hoover. It's an upright, it was an upright Hoover. The kind of thrashy, brushy bit would be whizzing around here, driven by this shaft, which comes off the back of the motor, which is here. This drum here houses the impeller. That it's a centrifugal flow impeller, a bit like the very early gas turbines, well, the English ones anyway, jet engines. So it draws, yeah, you can see that quite well actually. It spins round, essentially kind of throws the air towards the outside of the impeller. That air gets exhausted here. There's a little, yeah, that comes out there as far as I can tell, and more air gets drawn in to the central eye here, if you like, the intake. So all of this part, so I keep having to lean over to make sure I'm in shot. Let's just be confident that I am. Right, okay, here we go. So this part is therefore going to be at a lower pressure. All this area here is going to be at a lower pressure, this area, and then so air will be drawn in this way and exhausted there. So far so good. So yeah, so I ripped it all apart. Came apart pretty easily actually. I think it was the worst offenders for maintainability. I suspect this thing could have been maintained had it gone wrong. I think it's probably a bit past that now. It was never very good as a Hoover, so that's why it's been sacrificed. I'm hoping that the poor hoovering performance was down to the many layers of gubbins that were upstream of this, filtering all the stuff out. It was a centrifugal flow, cyclonic. So it was a cyclonic type of Hoover, bagless, which was okay. Just as an observation, I do find, so the best, I'm not going to do any product placement, but the best, and I'm sticking my neck out here, this is probably what YouTube's all about, the best Hoover that I've ever used, and one that I still have, is has a bag. and it has we got some washable bags for it, so that we can reuse the bags, and it works really well. Sucks beautifully, and we've never had any problems. What I find with, really, I don't want to set off some sort of YouTube storm here with my sort of 3 subscribers, but I find that the cyclonic hoovers tend to have many layers of filtration upstream of the cyclone bit. No, sorry, downstream, which to my mind kind of defeats the object. The idea, I thought, was to not have loads of kind of draggy material in the way of the air as it flows through the system. So I'm not convinced. Anyway, so that this was one of those type. What I'm trying to do here is make a connection between this and some kind of hose. This was the hose off the old machine, which I think I'm going to sacrifice, so that I've got a sort of a suction generator, if for want of a better expression. My plan then is to connect this to a dustbin to create a low pressure space inside the dustbin, into which will be drawn air through a kind of a slot in the side, or organised to introduce the air tangentially and create my own sort of cyclonic filtration. Really, it might not really work out that well, but I mean, I'm hoping that basically dust and air and crap will fly in the side of this bin and settle while the air extraction from the bin is happening. I think I'm going to fit this to the lid of the bin so that it's drawing air from the top, and maybe introduce the dirty air in a sort of a tangential and downward trajectory-ish, so that hopefully the dust gets spun out. That's the plan, and then we'll see what happens. The as I understand it, with this type of system, the cooling air for the motor itself is actually the working air that's actually being used in the hoover. So it'll come out of my dustbin, hopefully relatively clean, go in here, go through the impeller, and but also it will be cooling the motor itself. So hopefully we won't have it won't be too dirty once it's come out, because that would clog the motor up. But we'll be able to tell, because when it comes out of here finally, what we get out of here will tell us how much crud has actually been filtered out. So that's the plan. I've prepared this plywood piece to go in there. My plan is to cut a hole in this of an appropriate diameter to feed down this tube here, feed it down, probably leave, I'm not sure actually, not sure, probably leave this part on, and then have some put some captive bolts into here, one here, God, you can't see anything, captive bolts in here that I can then bolt that onto to clamp that into position, and therefore hold the pipe against that hole there. Having said all that, it doesn't sound very likely that's going to work, but anyway, we can but try. So the end I'm actually going to use is this end, so if I give this a twist, that'll come off. Well, what am I doing? Could I just do that? Is that the end of the video? Could I just do that? And then just, am I being a complete dipstick? If I just put that in there. saw it here first. Live. A live reassessment of the best way to do this has just happened. And if I cut that down, this is a gradually increasing, a tube of very gradually increasing diameter. If I cut that off at the right place, that's a really nice interference fit into there. So if I cut that off at there, and then screw that into there, it's done. It's done. Okay. Right, I'll give that a go. So let's not muck about. I'm going to push that on there nice and tight. Am I missing something absolutely obvious here, or am I about to just completely wreck the whole thing? No, I think I can just do this. That needs to go further to be a nice tight fit. So I'm pulling it down because you can see it gradually grows like that. So I'm going to pull that down. I think that's about it. That's about as far as it wants to go. I'm going to cut this off, maybe leave a little bit of overlap, just to give me a bit of leeway, just in case I want to put something in there to stop it popping out. Yeah, that's probably a good point. I think I'm going to leave myself enough to just give myself some room for a couple of mistakes worth, and maybe enough material there to maybe run some small screws in to lock it in so it doesn't come out. Wow, that was easy. Wow. And then I can then the idea would be, oh no, it's not very clear actually. But that would be just to, if I can, there's a piece of material here and a piece of material here that I don't think has anything behind it, so I'm going to use that to either chuck some self-tapping type screws in. This sounds very flash. I'm just going to screw the bloody thing in. Just make sure there's nothing like massively electrical behind it or anything like that. Or maybe if I can get some bolts in there, I could bolt it in. I'd prefer to bolt it because you're not relying on plastic, sort of self-made plastic, self-chewed plastic threads. So there's nothing behind those. Can you see that? Yeah, there's nothing in there. So I could probably, yeah. God, I could do it all with it before I'd even closed it up. So I could pop a nut on the back there, a bolt on the front there, bolt this part, eventually bolt that part into place once I've got everything trimmed back. Ooh, wow, I was really not looking forward to even starting to do this, but actually, like most things, it's always really hard to start, and then once you get going, suddenly you realise that actually you make a massive meal out of it and there wasn't anything to worry about in the first place. Obviously until everything goes absolutely disastrously wrong. Then you realise there really was stuff that you should have been worrying about. That's sort of my life there, really. Okay, right, I'm going to go and see if I can just trim this down, and then I'll, don't touch that dial. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, so cut that off. It's always tricky cutting round objects. I feel like I should have put in a lathe and, parted it off really nicely. But actually, that's a pretty even. I've given it about 1 centimetre, and it's not come off at a massive angle. Inevitably, I'll hang off onto the offcut bit because I literally can't throw anything away. Plastic bits like that are useful sometimes anyway. So I'm just trying to work out where best to drill through to bolt. I just want a reasonable amount of material, but not get in the way of anything. I suppose I'm gonna get a daylight on it. Somewhere like just down in those wells down there. I think there's enough material around that to hold it in place. I think Yeah, I reckon. I mean, it'd be good to have something at the top to make sure we retain a nice good seal on it, but I suppose I could, if I could fit a piece of material behind this kind of grill thing, then I could actually run a bolt straight, a couple maybe of bolts through to into that, or a couple of screws as a bit of a refinement. But let's see where we get on with this to start with, and then we'll take it from there. I'll go to look at my supply of nuts and bolts. Inevitable drawer of nuts and bolts. I've got anything suitable. Possibly nuts without bolts and bolts without nuts. Well, these slightly rusty ones could be good. I'm not gonna. I don't. You know, if for an application like this, I don't mind using pretty rusty, scungy old ones, because I'll just whack some oil on them and they'll be fine. I think it'll be fine. Scungy. So we got a couple here. Couple of screw-headed bolts, or are they screws? Oh my God. Right. So if I drill an appropriately sized hole in here, pop the nut. Oh yeah. Oh, how much depth have we need? Is that going to be okay? Not long enough. Fudge. Not long enough. Well, at least I found some nuts for those bolts. That's frustrating. Why is that? Am I sure? Am I sure? Yeah, they're definitely not long enough. Right. Pants. More nuts and bolts. More nuts and bolts. Oh, that's frustrating. That would have been, if that had worked, that would have been brilliant. I'm sure I'm not the first person to have said that in this world. Am I being silly? Should I just use some kind of self-tapping type screws? Is this a screw job or a nut job, a bolt job? It's enduring. Now what about this? These might be good. A couple of random hex head Allen type bolts. Ooh, I like it. Yeah, they look alright. I'll find some compatible nuts from my massive nut collection. Oh no, don't tell me I haven't got the right size nuts for these screws. Oh, there we go, we're in. There's one. And there's another one. Brilliant, okay. So they are long enough. They're long enough to go through, all the way through. Oh, okay, you can't really see that. They need to basically go like that. So the other nut wasn't quite long enough. So screw, sorry. Bolt, Jesus. Okay, so they're just long enough. I'd love to put a washer on, but I'm not sure if I can even fit one of those on. God damn it, yes I can. I'm going to do it. I'm going to fit a washer. Throw caution to the wind. Caution to the wind. Just need to find a spot with enough material around it to make it a meaningful fit up there. Right, this is going to be a bit hacky, I'm afraid. I'm just going to drill through, I think. The good thing about bolts is though, this isn't right. So yeah, this isn't the plane project for which this whole YouTube channel was originally conceived. So if anyone's watching this who has anything to do with that, I don't hack stuff. I do it properly. So there. Right, I'm just going to get this. I'll get these bits drilled, and then I'll bring you back in again, and we'll have a look at what I've achieved. So I've drilled a couple of holes in what I think is about the right place, and so yeah, that'll go in there. So I just need to drill a appropriate hole in the plastic behind, and I think I might actually, it's a bit dodgy, I'm going to use that as a kind of a guide. And then, there you go. Oh, that went through. Oh no. Yep. Right, so, well, they don't look too bad. I don't know. Can I fit? Have I got a bit too close to there? That would be frustrating. That would be frustrating. They may have done. I may have to widen those holes out a bit just to allow me to get a nut behind it. Oh yeah, I am going to have to do that. No, don't look. Right, I'm going to have to create some room here for a nut to be fitted behind that. Oh, that was pretty stupid. That was stupid. So what I've done is I've drilled the holes too close to the side of the moulding to allow me to fit a nut behind, which is really stupid. How am I going to get out of that? I can't. Oh well, okay. Don't beat yourself up about it. Now that goes through like that, and that needs to go in there, and it can't because that hole's too close to the side. So what am I going to do? Is it the same both sides? Is it the same problem both sides, or is it just I just cocked it up on one side? You should have thought about what you're doing, shouldn't you? Heard that before. Yeah, guys, so close to being in the right place. Again, that's what not being in the right place means, though, doesn't it? Right, I'm just going to try. Oh God, I'm just trying to oval out that hole a bit to just give me enough room to get a nut behind it. Come on. Right, this might be a good place for a strategic cut. Okay, after what I would characterise as a degree of faffing, I have managed to get. No, you can see. Can you see those? Well, anyway, I'm asking you, like, as if someone's going to say no. There we go. There's a nut there, and then there's an Allen bolt there, just the right length actually. So I've cranked it all up nice and tight. So this plate is now secured against that bit of plastic there. So, well, I've just got to I've kind of got to just put it back together, and it's sort of done. It's a bit disappointing. I was just hoping for more, ups and downs. Just be careful what I wish for. So I've just got to just squidge that bit of cable back into that channel there as they run it up. I think it ran up through there, and there's a rubber gasket arrangement. Gasket's the right word. There. Just come on. Really nice if that all went back together nicely. Why isn't that came back together nicely? There's these little prongs that it needs to sit on. that's okay. And then we'll just, if we just pop this back on, like that. So that seals around there. This is sealed, kind of sealed against there. I have got some, right, that's, wow. I've got some screws that I took out when I took the thing apart. Let's see if any of these actually fit. They're all black. They're all black screws. Go to my screwdriver section. So everyone should know about this. Start off your screws in the wrong direction. You can hear that clicking. That's basically the end of the screw hitting the end of the thread that it's made. If you turn it the other way, you should avoid crossing the thread. That's Fran Labs, Fran Blanche is a great advocate of that. I suppose as a sort of, I suppose I'm a YouTuber now, I should maybe refer to people that I watch who are good, and that is a good one. Am I a YouTuber? Is this YouTubing? Not in any meaningful sense, I suspect. Certainly not going to quit the day job. Right, a couple more down there. So there we go, you can hear it clicking either way. Yeah. The other thing about crossing threads is if you're going to put something into something else and you're worried, just use your fingers and use them gently to start with. I can recall when I was young, someone amazingly trusting me to put spark plugs into their aeroplane engine. I think I was only about 17 and I was completely, well, more of an idiot then than I am now. But I didn't cross the threads, but you don't want to cross the thread screwing a spark plug into an engine block. Especially not an aeroplane engine block. And I think there were two spark plugs per cylinder as aeroplanes want. So lots of chances to get it wrong, but as far as I'm aware I didn't. So connect that to the mains. Motor whizzes round, impeller whizzes round, air gets thrown out of there. And air gets sucked in through there, and somewhere in the middle it goes through the motor, I think, to give it some cooling. So, okay, now I have I salvaged the original switch assembly from that stuff, which I've probably lost now. That's frustrating. Surely, no, I didn't. I haven't lost it. I kept it, specifically kept it. Okay, right, here we go. So this is, what I'm not going to do is do like me chucking stuff around angrily, trying to find things in the workshop montage, because I think that would just be tedious. So stand by for a bit more in a bit. Found in my random box of things to sort out box. So that we've got a switch here, single pole, single throw switch there. So mains power comes in here, goes into the switch, comes out of the switch. There is a capacitor across the live and the neutral of the power supply for reasons that I've never quite, I need to just Google it. You do this on AC motors, possibly any motor, they put a capacitor in. I think maybe it softens the start of the motor. it would make sense that it just sort of, the initial inrush current, maybe some of it goes towards filling up that capacitor rather than giving the motor a big old kick. So so this brown and blue, these brown and blue wires here need to be connected to these brown and blue wires here, which are the ones connected to the motor. This bit here, this end here, needs to be connected to the mains, so I'll do that. And I will be right back. Of course, don't do this ever. I've got this as an old, actually it was a bit of cable with a plug already attached to it, which is probably pretty dangerous to have kicking around anyway, just in case the kids pick it up, but anyway, I'm sure they'll be fine. So yeah, so we've got that's into the wall, brown switch, brown motor, neutral, neutral, neutral. So yeah, I suppose we can just, I suppose you just have to turn it on and see what happens. So here we go. Whoa! Okay. Okay, so that worked. Hang on. Whoa, okay. Okay. Right, so that sucks in a good way. So that really does. That was pretty fierce, the amount of suction coming in there. Wow. Okay, well, I'm going to call that a success. Let's just unplug this before I electrocute myself. That's unplugged. Right, come on. Okay, good. So yeah, so that worked. That's good. I was getting, yeah, I mean, it just wanted to sort of pull me in and drag me through its wildly spinning turbo machinery. It's almost a little bit intimidating. So yeah, so that's working. So if I then connect this to this, so I'll pop this back on. This is its little trunk from when it was a Hoover. Don't make a massive mess here. Yeah, there we go. So what we will end up with is a fairly substantial amount of suction on this pipe, and I'm going to do that thing that people on YouTube do now, which is pick up I start wandering around carrying a tripod, which is this is very 2020. So the ultimate destination for that is actually this fairly sorry looking bin here. It has a lid, so my intention would be to attach that suction creating, I've got to think of a better way of saying that. I've got to think of a better way of saying it. That suction creating machinery is going to be attached to this to generate low pressure in here, and then another hose will be attached to this bin through which the contaminated air, well, hopefully just air and sawdust, will come into the bin tangentially, and the intention being that it spins around inside and the sawdust settles out to the bottom, and the nice clean-ish air gets drawn out by the suction engine that we've just built. And there we are. So that bin will no longer then be a sort of general waste bin. It will be a sawdust bin that will go somewhere here. I'm going to move there's the aforementioned vacuum cleaner. Other vacuum cleaners are available. I'm going to move this to where little Henry is. I'm going to have to get, for the plain build, I'm going to have to get a sanding wheel, sanding disc, one of those fixed ones, which I think I'm going to locate here. And the intention would be, I think, to have the bin in between the two, kind of where the bandsaw is right now. And I'm probably going to have some kind of a changeover valve of some form, or maybe I'll just pull the hose out of one and push it into the other when I want to use it. But I think this is going to make a difference, because working without any extraction, it's just that this poor bandsaw is going to be so clogged with sawdust. I mean, if you look in here, heaven knows what it's been doing to the bearings. What's in here? This is their sort of dust collection tray. We just want to draw that out. I'm going to probably have to give this bandsaw a little bit of TLC as well, change the bearings. Maybe. It's only like a prosumer, or is it prosumer? Probably the bottom end of that. It's worked very well though, actually, over the years. I've had it a long time now. I can remember feeling a little bit wobbly about buying the thing, because I didn't know whether I was going to get any use out of it, and then I did. I've used it so much. Yeah. Often the way with relatively expensive tools, if you wait until you think you need them and then you buy them, you just end up using them and using them and using them, I think. So it's worth it. I mean, what doesn't really work so well is things like the kind of angle sliders and stuff like that, all this kind of thing on a proper, I mean, it may obviously be operator error, but on a proper professional one of these, I think they'd be probably assembled to much closer tolerances and be a lot beefier, because you just start to get inaccuracies. But you know, don't blame your tools. If you use it right, you can get good results. So there we are. Okay, I think I'm going to call that a win for now. That's taken a long time. You see these people who do these amazing things on YouTube, you realise actually it just takes a long time just to do anything. But you know, we started off with, well, a Hoover, and now we've got something that we can use for at least creating a low pressure environment into which dust may be sucked, and that basically amounts to the same thing. So there we are. I've achieved nothing. There we go. Alright, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to break the habit of a lifetime now. Now the workshop's so tidy, and it doesn't look it, but this is tidy for me. I am going to spend the last half an hour or so tidying up. There we are. Okay, next time, bin surgery, I suspect. Cheers, bye.